There is surveillance footage from a bank in Cheshire, Connecticut, that most people who have seen it say they can never quite forget. In it, a woman stands at a counter. She looks composed. She looks like someone running a routine Monday morning errand, withdrawing money, exchanging a few words with the teller, waiting for the transaction to complete. Nothing about her posture, nothing about the way she moves through the frame suggests that anything is wrong. What the camera cannot show is that her husband is tied to a support column in the basement of their home, bleeding from 5 wounds to his skull, fighting to stay conscious. That her 2 daughters, 17 and 11 years old, are bound to their beds upstairs with pillowcases over their heads. That the men who did this are circling the block outside the bank right now, waiting for her to walk back out with the money. And what she doesn't know, what she is completely unable to know as she stands at that counter, is that while she is in this bank, believing the worst is already behind her, believing this transaction is the thing that ends it, the situation inside her home has already become something no amount of money was ever going to stop. This is the story of what happened to the Petit family on the night of July 22, 2007. Be prepared. The deeper this goes, the worse it gets, and it gets very bad before it is over. Cheshire, Connecticut is the kind of town people move to when they want a certain kind of life. Around 30,000 residents, New Haven County, about 2 hours from New York City if the traffic is cooperating. No towers, no sprawl, just tree-lined streets, historic homes, small lakes, and the kind of quiet that takes years to find and longer to leave behind. It was settled in 1694, and in the 3 centuries since, its defining characteristic has remained roughly the same. Nothing much happens here. The Petit family chose Cheshire deliberately. They had built exactly the kind of life the town was designed for. William Petit was a physician, a general practitioner who had eventually moved into diabetes research and become, in a modest way, a recognized figure in local medical circles. He was in his early 50s at the time of these events, the kind of man whose defining quality at home was a gentle inability to say no to his daughters. They knew it, they used it, he let them. Jennifer, his wife, worked as a school nurse at a private boarding school nearby. She played piano and guitar. She taught Sunday classes at her church. She had the kind of warmth that made other people's problems feel like her own. She was the nurse students went to not just for scraped knees, but for the quieter, harder things that teenagers carry around, and rarely talk about with anyone. She had met William in 1985 when he was doing his residency at the hospital where she worked. What followed was unhurried and certain. Courtship, a wedding, then 2 daughters born into a home that was, by any reasonable measure, a good one. Haley was 17. In September, she would start medical school, a goal she had been building towards since she was young enough to spend her weekends in her father's office, already captivated by the work he did. She co-captained the basketball team and the rowing team at school. She was the kind of student that teachers remember for a long time after. She had a specific, well-lit future ahead of her, and she knew exactly where she was going. Michaela was 11. Her father called her Rosebud. Her thing was cooking, not in the casual, occasional way that some kids try it, but with real sustained interest. She followed recipes she found online, ran experiments in the kitchen, developed her own variations on dishes she liked. She cooked for her family. On the evening of July 22nd, she was making pasta and tomato bruschetta. The sauce was one she had come up with herself. This is the family. Hold on to who they are, because the story requires it. It's around 7 in the evening when Jennifer and Michaela head to the Stop and Shop in Cheshire, a supermarket chain well known throughout the northeastern United States, located less than 10 minutes from the Petit home. William is out finishing a round of golf. Haley is out with friends. Jennifer and Michaela are picking up the ingredients Michaela needs for dinner, while Jennifer moves through the aisles working through their list, and Michaela follows along, checking her recipe on her phone. Neither of them notices that someone in the store is watching them. His name is Joshua Komisarjevsky. He's 27 years old, and he has come to the supermarket for ordinary reasons, to use the ATM, to pick up a few things. But when he notices Jennifer, the ordinary reasons stop mattering. She is well-dressed. She is wearing gold jewelry. She drives, as he will shortly observe, a late-model Chrysler Pacifica SUV. In Joshua's mind, these details add up to one thing: money. And he is in need of money. His thinking at this point has no particular sophistication to it. If the opportunity presents itself on the way out, he might grab her necklace. He might try to take the car. He follows them to the parking lot and watches Jennifer and Michaela load their groceries and drive away. Then he follows the car. The drive is shorter than he was hoping. 7 minutes. The family lives at 300 Sorghum Mill Drive, a house in a quiet residential neighborhood surrounded by trees, a short distance from the town center. Jennifer parks, they carry the groceries inside, and the van pulls up a few meters down the street. Joshua watches through the windshield. He watches Jennifer call her husband, asking him to pick up vegetables from a local farmer on his way back from the golf course. He watches Haley come home from her evening out. He watches William arrive with the vegetables and go inside. He takes out a piece of paper and notes that the family has 4 members: a woman, 2 girls, 1 adult man. This represents the full extent of his preparation. By around 7:45, he drives home. He has a 5-year-old daughter who needs to be put to bed, but he has already decided what he is going to do once she is asleep. He contacts his friend Stephen Hayes. Stephen is 44 years old. He is drifting. Between addresses, between jobs, between whatever comes next. When Joshua reaches him and explains that he has a plan to make some easy money that night, Stephen says he is in without needing to hear much else. Joshua describes it simply: a burglary. The family will be asleep. They walk in, find the safe. Because in Joshua's imagination, people who drive nice cars and wear gold jewelry keep safes full of cash in their homes, and walk out. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody even knows they were there until morning. Around 9 p.m., as Joshua is putting his daughter to bed, his phone buzzes. Stephen is excited. He can barely wait. He texts Joshua to ask if they're still on. Joshua tells him to be patient. Meanwhile, at 300 Sorghum Mill Drive, the Petit family is doing what they do every evening. Dinner together at the table. Haley talking about medical school. September isn't far away. Michaela's bruschetta getting the reception it deserves. William listening to his daughters and thinking, probably, about very little, except how good this is. After dinner, the girls settle into the living room to watch television. Haley and Michaela are in the middle of a series and not remotely close to done for the night. William had wanted to watch something, but the girls have the remote, and he doesn't push the issue. He takes his newspaper out to the porch instead and sits down on the couch. He'll watch TV eventually. He figures they'll go to bed soon enough. By around 10, the girls are starting to tire. William has fallen asleep on the porch couch, which neither daughter wants to disturb. It's warm outside. July in Connecticut. He won't get cold. Haley heads upstairs to her room. Michaela joins her mother in the master bedroom to read. She's working through the latest Harry Potter book, a gift from her parents. The house goes quiet. Nobody locks the basement door. Joshua and Stephen meet in front of the house at approximately 2:45 in the morning. The street is completely silent. Even in midsummer, residential Cheshire is not a place that stays awake past midnight. Joshua already knows the property from his surveillance that afternoon. He leads them around to the back. Along the way, he finds a baseball bat sitting in the yard, left behind by William or one of the girls after an afternoon outside. He picks it up and hands it to Stephen. At the rear of the house, they locate the basement entrance, the kind set into the ground at an angle opening like a cellar hatch onto a staircase that descends beneath the structure. The door isn't locked. They pull dark knit balaclavas over their heads and slip inside. They cross the basement. They climb the interior stairs. They come up into the porch. William is right there, stretched out on the couch, newspaper beside him, asleep. Joshua takes the bat back from Stephen and hits him 5 times across the skull. William comes awake hard, disoriented, head screaming, blood already running down the side of his face before he fully understands that he is awake. It takes several seconds to make sense of what he is seeing. 2 figures in dark clothing, a bat, a handgun appearing from somewhere and pressing against his temple. He cries out, from pain, yes, but more from the sudden knowledge of Jennifer and the girls sleeping upstairs. And in the same moment, the physician part of his brain delivers a piece of information that sharpens the fear into something specific. He has been on blood thinners for years. Daily medication prescribed because his blood forms clots too readily. The medication prevents that, but it also means his blood cannot clot properly when it needs to. A wound that would close normally on a healthy person can keep bleeding in him without stopping. 5 blows to the skull is not a minor wound. The blood running down his face is not slowing down. He tries instinctively to press something against it. His wrists are already being zip-tied behind him. His ankles are bound. The moment for instinct has passed. Joshua presses the gun to his temple and asks where the safe is. William tells him there is no safe. Joshua asks again. Same answer. William does not have a safe. There is no safe. This is not what Joshua planned for. The safe was the entire premise. The jewelry, the car, the nice house, all of it pointing toward cash stored somewhere on the property. Now the man is bleeding all over the porch couch, telling him the safe doesn't exist, and Joshua cannot immediately decide whether he's lying or whether the plan was wrong from the start. They leave William tied on the porch and go upstairs to look for it themselves. Joshua pushes open the door to the master bedroom. Jennifer and Michaela are both inside. Michaela had come in with her book and fallen asleep there beside her mother. Jennifer opens her eyes at the sound and screams the moment she processes what she is seeing. She pulls Michaela against her. The men move toward them with zip ties. Jennifer doesn't fight. She does not want to put Michaela in harm's way by escalating. She begs them, her voice controlled, trying to stay calm for her daughter. Not to hurt her. Not to hurt her girls. Jennifer is tied to the bed frame. A pillowcase is placed over her head. Then they take Michaela out of the room to bring her to her own bedroom down the hall. And Jennifer, unable to see, unable to move, cries out after her daughter, desperate, pleading for them to bring her back, promising she will give them whatever they want if they just don't hurt her children. Michaela is laid on her bed, tied down, pillowcase over her head. Haley has heard her mother's voice and is rigid with fear when they come through her door. She screams. They tell her there is nothing to worry about. They only want money. Nobody will be hurt. She needs to stay calm. They tie her to her bed, pillowcase over her head. The whole family is now accounted for. William on the porch, bleeding. Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela, each bound and blindfolded in the dark upstairs, listening to two men move through their home. There is no safe. They search every room, every closet, every drawer on both floors. They tear through cupboards and look behind furniture and check every space that could plausibly hold a hidden compartment. They find nothing. No safe, no cash reserves. Nothing even particularly valuable, no collector's items, no expensive electronics worth fencing. The house belongs to a family that puts its money in the bank, not under the mattress. When Joshua and Stephen finally accept this, they have to confront the fact that the plan they came here with does not exist anymore. What they find instead during their search is a bank statement. Jennifer and William have savings, more than $30,000, held at a Bank of America branch located near the very supermarket where Joshua first saw Jennifer the evening before. The money is not in the house. The money is in the bank, and the bank opens at 9 in the morning. It is approximately 3:30 in the morning. That is more than 5 hours away. They bring William down to the basement and tie him to a structural support column, more secure than the porch couch. They drape a blanket over his head. He is conscious but deteriorating. The blood has not stopped. He is focused entirely on staying awake, which he knows medically is the thing that matters most right now. He listens to the sounds of the house. He listens for the voices of his wife and daughters. Upstairs, the girls wait in total darkness and silence. No clock visible. No sense of how much time is passing. Just the muffled sounds of movement downstairs and the occasional sound of the other crying. And then eventually, the birds. And then the faint mechanical clicking of the garden sprinklers. They run automatically every morning at 5 a.m. They recognize the sound. At around 7, Stephen takes the Petit family's car, keys found on the kitchen counter, and drives to a nearby gas station. He fills 2 jerry cans he found in the yard. About $10 worth of fuel. Enough to burn a house completely and thoroughly. Upstairs, the girls hear a car engine starting. They hear it pull away down the street and disappear. The house is quieter than it has been all night. At 9, Joshua comes back upstairs and unties Jennifer. She's exhausted, a full night on her back, bound, blindfolded, listening to everything and able to do nothing. She asks to change out of her pajamas. She needs the family checkbook to make the withdrawal. Joshua allows it. She goes downstairs. She retrieves the checkbook. She notices, as she walks to the car, that neither man is wearing a balaclava. Stephen had removed his hours ago when he went to the gas station. Joshua had taken his off during the night because he was too warm. Neither thought to put them back on. Jennifer looks at their faces. She says nothing. She memorizes what she sees. She gets into the passenger seat. Stephen drives. At the bank parking lot, Stephen pulls in and stops. He reminds Jennifer of the terms. Come back with the money, and her family will be fine. Don't come back or bring police, and they won't be. Jennifer promises to return. She gets out of the car. She walks through the bank's front door. Stephen begins circling the block, waiting. Inside, Jennifer approaches the teller counter and asks to withdraw $15,000. The teller asks for identification. Jennifer doesn't have it. She left the house in the clothes she had time to change into, nothing else. She opens her wallet. She takes out 2 photographs, Haley and Michaela, and she leans forward and begins speaking very quietly. She explains that her family is being held at their home, that a man is waiting outside right now, that he has said he will not hurt her husband or her daughters as long as she comes back with the money. She asks the teller to please process the withdrawal. She needs to believe, that once the cash is in her hand and she is back in that car, this ends. The teller steps away under the pretext of retrieving a document and goes directly to the branch manager's office. The manager is a woman named Mary Lyons. She listens to the teller's account, absorbs it, and makes 2 decisions in quick succession. The withdrawal goes through regardless, and she is calling 911 immediately. She moves to a darkened office with a window overlooking the parking lot, switches off the light so she cannot be seen from outside, and dials. She tells the operator that the woman being held hostage is inside the bank at this moment. She relays Jennifer's account, that the suspect outside does not appear to intend harm, that he has asked only for money. She gives the home address. She stays on the line. It is 9:21 in the morning. She watches through the darkened window as Jennifer collects the $15,000, turns from the counter, and walks back out to the parking lot. She watches her get into the passenger seat of the waiting car. She watches the car leave. Police units are dispatched to 300 Sorghum Mill Drive. Now, hold that image. Police have the address. They have a description. They have Jennifer's account that the perpetrators are present in the house right now. They know there is a family inside. They respond immediately and arrive at Sorghum Mill Drive while Stephen is still driving Jennifer back from the bank. They assess the exterior. They see no visible signs of disturbance. And they begin, in accordance with standard procedure, to establish a perimeter. They cordon off the street. They position units around the property. They set up tape. They do not approach the house. They do not attempt to make contact with anyone inside. When a SWAT unit reaches out to local command and offers to send a negotiator, local command declines. They have the situation under control. They stand on the perimeter and wait. Inside the house, while the perimeter is being quietly assembled outside, Joshua has been alone with the family. What he does during this time is the part of this case that is hardest to sit with. He assaults Michaela. He photographs it on his cell phone. Then he attempts to destroy the evidence using bleach. And he knows, even as he does it, that it is not enough. His DNA is already in the criminal database. If Michaela survives, if she's able to speak, there's no outcome for him that does not end in a cell for the rest of his life. When Stephen and Jennifer return to the house, Joshua tells Stephen what he has done, and then he instructs Stephen to assault Jennifer. Stephen, completely overwhelmed, does not refuse. Jennifer is on the floor of the living room. She is exhausted from the night, from the fear, from everything her body has processed in the last 8 hours. She fights as much as she is able. She begs him to stop. He tells her it will be over in a few minutes. In the basement, William hears his wife's voice. He understands what is happening. He understands that what began as a burglary has become something that nobody inside this house is supposed to survive. He begins working at his restraints. He pulls. The blood that has been soaking his wrists through the long night is working in his favor now. The ties are slipping. He keeps pulling. His hands come free. He stands up slowly, carefully, aware that he has been bleeding for hours and that standing too fast might be the last thing he does. He pulls the blanket off his head. He looks around the basement and takes stock. The stairs lead up to the main house, where 2 men with a weapon are currently in the living room. The back door leads outside. He moves to the back door. He pushes it open. He steps out. There are police officers around the yard. William barely registers them. His neighbor Dave lives close enough. That is his one objective. He crosses toward the garage door and knocks. Knocks again. Dave is home. When he opens the door, he does not recognize the man standing in front of him. There is a deep laceration across his skull, dried and fresh blood covering his face and soaking his shirt. William tells him who he is. Dave calls 911 without hesitation. A uniformed officer from the perimeter unit reaches them within 30 seconds. William looks at the officer. He says, "My daughters are still in the house." Nobody moves toward the house. Inside, Joshua comes downstairs to check on the basement and finds William gone. He runs back up. Stephen is still in the living room with Jennifer. Joshua tells him, "William got out. Police are outside." Stephen looks through a window. He can see the patrol car. He can see officers on the street. He turns back to Jennifer. She is semi-conscious on the floor, exhausted, barely able to lift her arms. He gets down and wraps his hands around her throat and uses everything he has. She reaches up and tries to pry his hands away. She fights until there is nothing left to fight with. Her arms fall to the floor. Stephen gets up. He picks up the first jerry can. He douses Jennifer's body. He moves through the living room, into the hallway, soaking the floor and the walls. He goes upstairs. He goes into Haley's room. She is still tied to the bed, still blindfolded. He goes into Michaela's room, he pours the fuel, he comes back downstairs, he picks up the second can and keeps going until both are empty. He strikes a match. He drops it. He and Joshua pick up the bag with the $15,000 and walk out the front door. The house ignites with the speed that a structure soaked in gasoline ignites, which is to say, almost immediately. Flames spread from room to room and floor to floor in a matter of seconds. Upstairs, Haley senses smoke before she sees anything. She works at her restraints with everything she has, pulling, twisting, fighting the ties, until she gets free. She gets off the bed. She moves toward Michaela's room. The hallway is already filling. She presses her arm across her face, coughing hard, eyes burning, trying to stay low, trying to keep moving. The fire is faster than she is. The smoke thickens with every step. She loses her footing. She goes down in the hallway and does not get back up. Outside, William is screaming at anyone who will listen. The fire department arrives. Firefighters assess the entrance and find the smoke already too dense, the flames already too deep into the structure. They cannot get inside. Stephen and Joshua reach the family car and get in. They pull away from the burning house. Officers give chase. They are surrounded within minutes on a nearby road, the car stopped by a patrol vehicle. The impact is jarring but not severe. Neither man has the will to resist. They are taken out of the car and handcuffed on the pavement while the house they just left burns behind them. When firefighters finally force their way inside, they find Jennifer in the living room where she was left. They find Haley in the hallway upstairs just outside Michaela's door. Michaela never left her bed. She is found still attached to the bed frame by the restraint. She had no way to free herself, and nobody came through the smoke in time. William is the only member of the Petit family to survive the night. The case was national news within hours. And very quickly, alongside the grief and the horror, a question began to circulate through the coverage that did not have a comfortable answer. The 911 call came in at 9:21 a.m. Officers were on site before Stephen and Jennifer even returned to the house. The perimeter was established and units were in position while Joshua was with Michaela upstairs. Police were standing in the yard, within sight of the building, while Jennifer was being strangled in the living room. They were setting up tape while Stephen walked through the house with the jerry cans. They were maintaining their positions while two men walked out the front door carrying $15,000 in a bag. Nobody went inside. At trial, Police Captain Robert Vignola testified that from the exterior, there had been no visible signs of activity, that the units had followed standard procedure for a hostage situation, that had he known the full nature of what was happening inside, he would have ordered entry immediately. He expressed his sorrow for the outcome. The 911 call made by Mary Lyons was played in open court. In it, she tells the operator that Jennifer has said the perpetrators do not seem to intend harm, that they have promised to leave once the money is returned, and that Jennifer specifically asked her not to involve police in a way that might provoke them. Captain Vignola testified that this information had shaped his decision to hold the perimeter rather than force entry. What authorities were condemned for, by the press, by the public, by the family, and eventually in the official record, was not the caution itself, but the complete absence of any attempt at communication. No negotiator was sent in despite an offer from SWAT. No contact was made with the house. No attempt was made to assess the situation from the inside in any way. For over 30 minutes while a family was being killed, officers stood on the perimeter and watched a house. The trial of Stephen Hayes opened in September 2010 at the Superior Court of New Haven. Stephen spent much of the proceedings apologizing. He said repeatedly that things had gone further than he ever intended. His defense team worked to establish Joshua as the primary architect and escalating force, the one who had initiated the violence, the one whose choices had driven everything past the point of no return. The prosecution's position was unambiguous. Both men had been present for every act committed inside that house, and both bore full responsibility. Stephen Hayes was found guilty on all counts: burglary, assault, kidnapping, murder. 6 death sentences. 106 years in prison. His execution was scheduled for May 27, 2011. Joshua Komisarjevsky's trial followed in September 2011. Before it began, his attorneys attempted to negotiate a plea: life without the possibility of parole in exchange for a guilty plea. Sparing everyone the trial, the prosecution dismissed it without consideration. Joshua was found guilty on 17 capital counts. The jury recommended the death penalty. His execution was scheduled for July 20th, 2012. Neither man was executed. In April 2012, the Connecticut House of Representatives voted to abolish capital punishment in the state. Existing death sentences were not automatically voided, but were to be reviewed individually. Stephen had already made multiple attempts to end his own life in the time since his sentencing, swallowing medication, staging a hunger strike, telling investigators he was a serial killer, offering to confess to everything in exchange for oysters, to which he is fatally allergic. None of it had worked. His death sentence was reviewed and commuted to life without parole. He chose not to appeal. The Connecticut Supreme Court then ruled that because both men had been convicted of the same crimes, under the same circumstances, it would be legally inconsistent to maintain one death sentence while commuting the other. Joshua's sentence was commuted as well. Both men remain incarcerated. Neither is expected to be released. Since his conviction, Stephen has begun a gender transition and goes by the name Linda. Joshua separately filed a motion for a new trial. On the grounds that he had been unfairly portrayed as the dominant perpetrator, the motion was denied. William Petit left medicine after the trial. He had the house at 300 Sorghum Mill Drive demolished. The lot was converted into a memorial garden, a permanent space in Cheshire where Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela are remembered. He established the Petit Family Foundation, which has since funded scholarships, youth programs, and medical research in their names. In 2012, he remarried. His wife, Christine, had been a volunteer with the foundation. On November 23, 2013, they had a son. They named him William Arthur Petit. They live today in Farmington, Connecticut. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. And a special thanks to everyone who supports the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.